My first experience with NACL was in 1992. I responded to an ad that was in the local newspaper, get that concept, for a residential group home manager. So I applied for the job and went for the interview and got the job, and it was at Jinglepot Home. At the time, NACL had 6 group homes, they were called back then, residential group homes. And each group home was a home for 4 adults who would have lived in one of the institutions and came back or came to their community where their family or their friends were. And at Jinglepot Home, there were 4 residents who lived there. And our goal at that time was to integrate the people into the community. So there was myself for employees, there was myself, there was a day program person who took the individuals out in the community on a daily basis. And there were also 4 full-time staff as well as 2 part-time staff. At NACL at that time, there was also a nurse who was a contract nurse who you could call if you had any questions about medication or if there were any concerns about a person's health, and she was usually on call, or she would come to the home, and she was also responsible for doing some training as well with the staff. There were also 3 day programs, actions and options, and they supported about 8 individuals each who lived either at home with their families or with caregivers, as they were called at that time. There was also one program called Horizons, which was a one-on-one program, and again, the person who was supported either lived at home with their families or lived in a caregiving situation. So I was at Jinglepot Home for about a year, I guess it was, and then I left NACL for 5 years, and I actually went to work with children with developmental disabilities. And then when it was time for me to look for a job, when the contract was up with that position, again, in the newspaper, NACL was advertising for a program coordinator. So I applied for the job, went for the interview, and again got the job. So my responsibility was, as program coordinator, I was responsible for overseeing 3 of the residential group homes. Those homes were Metro Drive Home, Morningside Home, and Departure Bay Home. So there was also a residential supervisor or a group home manager, I guess it was, who was also responsible for that home. But I kind of oversaw all 3 homes at that point. A couple years down the road, it was decided that Access and Options and Horizons would amalgamate and become one day program, one huge day program. At that time, NACL had purchased a building on Commercial Street. It was the old Woolworths building. And it was to house the administration office as well as the day program. So the 3 programs were combined, and with the ideas that the staff had amongst that, and on how they would get themselves used to working with the individuals who they'd never worked with before, we had decided amongst ourselves that staff would, spend 1 day a week at the other program, and they would switch back and forth to become more familiar with working with the individuals as well as the staff and getting used to their routines and so on and so forth. At that time as well, the children in Nanaimo who had started in kindergarten who had developmental disabilities had come up right through the school system. And this was the very first time that now these kids were graduating from high school and they were ready to move on with the rest of their lives. So we worked very closely with the school district, with the teachers, with the support staff in the schools, with the families, to try and integrate the folks who were just graduating from high school into the day program. Shortly after that, we left Commercial Street, and NACL purchased the building on Victoria Avenue, Victoria Crescent, and Cavan Street. And so we moved the day program there. So the day program and administration was housed there as well. I was still the coordinator of the day program at the time. NACL was growing and changing in leaps and bounds at that time, particularly when we were supporting the folks who were graduating from high school. They had totally different expectations, and they had already gone through their IPPs and things in school, and now they're in these adult day programs, so their expectations were totally different than what we were used to. So then NACL was going to be accredited, so I took on the responsibility of being the person who would go through the training with the other organizations in BC, under the guidance really of Sue Hill, and learn about accreditation and how I could bring that back and prepare our agency to be accredited. So then there was a new position created, and it was Quality Assurance Facilitator, which was my position. And so I was responsible to prepare and lead the organization through the first accreditation. So Barbary and I were taking the lead on learning about person-centered planning ourselves, and then teaching the staff and introducing it to the whole agency, because it was something totally different. It was a whole new concept for us. So Barb and I spent quite a bit of time with Simiamu House Society in Surrey, White Rock, Surrey, learning from those folks over there. Michael Small, we attended many conferences as well, and then we brought back to the agency and began training the staff on person-centered planning. NACL has always been very person-centered thinking under the leadership of Graham Morey. Happy 35th anniversary, NACL. I'm very proud to have been part of your agency.